So I'm going to stop sharing.
Woohoo! Let me
And
see.
Glenn
I'm
is
going
going to do
to
his.
share desktop 1. And let me move this over here. Sorry, folks. Oop, that was a little bit aggressive. That's what it do. Oh, apologies there. Oop. Okay, that's what it did. There we are. Awesome. All right. Can you see the beautiful, the wonderful words that say, "I do"? How do I get started in open source? Can y'all see it?
Are you sharing?
Yep.
Yes, I see it.
See it? All right. Okay, well, so folks, if you are here to learn about how to get started in open source, you are in the right location.
Oh, yeah.
Public service announcement, Spring 1 is right around the corner. It's September 2nd and 3rd. It'll be between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. The amazing expensive cost is free. Like many conferences, we've gone virtual. And the reason why is we chose that special city called Your Desk to be able to present it. So kick in, go to spring1.io, register, and today we posted up the schedule. So hop in, see what talks are pertinent to you, and jump in, register, and go ahead and set up for your and kind of jot down the times and the subjects you're interested in. So there we go. Who am I? Well, I am Glenn Renfro. I am on the board of directors along with Vincent, Vinny, Burke, Laura, Caitlin, Summers, Pratik, and so since I'm on the board of directors of AJUG, it means I'm also on the board of directors of DevNexus. Just a quick reminder, DevNexus is, you can submit papers to the DevNexus. So we're still going to have DevNexus in February. It's probably going to be virtual as well. So please submit. If you're a first timer, submit. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. I am a VMware engineer. And I work on the Spring R&D team. So I work on Spring Cloud Data Flow, Spring Cloud Task, Spring Batch, and kind of wherever they need me. So these are all open source projects. And so what we're going to do is kind of give you a guided tour of what tools we're going to use. I'm going to back off of that because I can't ask you that anymore. I thought we could have raising hands, but it doesn't look like we can do that. But we're going to be talking about ways in which you can contribute, the tools that you use to contribute with, the steps it takes to contribute, the roles, those people that are involved in contributing and committing to open source projects. So we're going to be kind of talking about all that today as well. Normally I'd ask, who are you? And they would just be kind of a survey. So what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of skip past that for now and just assume that y'all may or may not have contributed to an open source project, but you have general knowledge of maybe some of the tools, but if you don't worry, we'll cover those. So one of the common questions is, why would I want to contribute? Well, one of the first thing is there's a bell or whistle that you want to have. There's this feature that particular project that you have, you want to have a feature added to it. And so one way in which you can get that feature in there is what? To contribute the code, right? The other is the ye old bug. There was a bug in there. It's not behaving the way it was supposed to. I could contribute the bug fix for that, right? Or even to that degree, I could contribute the test so that we can say we can find these bugs in the future, right? So, or prevent them from making it out. So there's that kind of aspect of being able to contribute to open source. The other is, well, the people that own the project or the major contributors to it. Well, in this case, well, they're just kind of, in this case, well, they've got the covert excitements, right? They're kind of, they're sorting socks, they're watching their grass grow, or they're massively busy and they haven't had a chance to work on that feature or that bug. So maybe I can help offload something by taking an existing issue that they have or an existing bug and actually working on it. Okay, Oop. Sorry, there we go. Another part is just being a part of the community, right? So if we look and we think about it, once you become a part of the community, you're starting to, you collaborate, you get to meet people that are in a different place other than where you work. So you get exposed to new ideas, new concepts, and share in the journey of open source. The other thing is you'll be able to, it's one thing to be able to read the documentation, actually use it, the tool, learn how it works. But the other part is that when you can actually go in and read the code, it's open source after all. But when you actually contribute back to the code, you increase your knowledge of what's going on in there. Not only are you increasing the knowledge of what's going on within that project and within that code base, it may also help you broaden your horizon to new features of things that you never thought about. I was working on a project in Spring Boot the other day, and as I was working in it, I looked at some code that someone had written, and I went, oh my gosh, that is a fantastic idea. So the next thing you know, I'm going back into Spring Cloud Task and adding it to Spring Cloud Task. And next thing you know, and from there, Michael's like, my boss is like going, okay, Glenn must have been in the boot code again, right? So it's a great way to explore and learn things about the project you may have never known, or even learn new techniques. The other, it doesn't look bad on the resume, right? So in this case, let's talk about it. So the first thing is that you may not have had that professional experience working on the project at the company, but yet if you go in and you worked with it and you played with it at home, and you see, hey, there's this feature, there's this bug, there's this documentation, we'll talk more about that in a bit, that I can add to. You can actually go in and put that as part of the resume. Yes, I've worked with XYZ project, but I've also contributed code back to that project. And so what this allows me to do is to be able to claim that next level of knowledge of the project. Not only have I used it, but I've actually contributed back to it. So these are things that, well, first off, broadens how much code that you have exposure to and you can put on your resume, but also increases that depth. Tools, oh my gosh, what tools do we use for open source projects? The fantastic, right? Well, source control, it's Git, right? There is a few projects out there still kind of on SourceForge-ish. And so with that, most projects have gone to GitHub and are using, of course, Git as a source control system, right? So just the nature of the beast, and there you go. Tools to open issues. So you've got that bell or whistle that you want to add, or you think that the project needs, or again, I found a bug. How do I report these? How do I open these issues? Most projects use GitHub issues nowadays, but some still use Jira. And you say, well, how do I find out where do I open an issue? Most of the time in the projects, if you read the README of the master project, they'll tell you open issues in GitHub or using GitHub issues, or they'll say, here's our Jira address, please open issues in Jira. So that README is most valuable for telling you where to go, right? Tools to ask questions. The most common place in the world to ask questions is Stack Overflow. So another way which you can do it is certainly through a project called Gitter. So when we look at this, what I want to make sure we understand is that through Stack Overflow, oh, cool, there we go, connected again, yay, is that make sure you tag. Let's say you ask a question on project XYZ. Make sure you tag your question in Stack Overflow so that when the project team goes searching, or people that want to get involved in that project go searching for questions to answer, that they can find it. The other thing to do is when you are you can use also Gitter. What is Gitter? Gitter is a messaging tool that you can that links to a project, much like Slack, um, that hooks into the project in GitHub. So if the project owners decide that they want to enable that feature, you can actually go in and go to Git or look for the project you're interested in and actually go into a messaging forum and be able to talk to people, and ask questions or answer questions, and do so live. Many projects actually, some of the ones I'm involved in, I actually, you'll see me pop in on the forum from time to time and answer those questions. Pseudo live, right? They may have been out there a couple hours or maybe a day or so, right? But I do pop in, I do answer those. But the one thing I do ask is that if you do use Gitter, um, when you ask a question, don't put ampersand and a specific person. Um, that basically tells the room that I don't want anybody else to answer this question except for this one person. And that one person may not sign on for a day or two, but somebody in the community may be able to answer that question. So when you do ask a question in the forum and kind of leave it public so that people can go in and join in and be able to be a part of that conversation. Tools, well, the rule of tools is Maven and Gradle. No big surprise. We are a Java-based ecosystem, and these are the two primary tools that are used by most projects, or almost all projects that are Java-based. So my favorite part, the part that excites me, the part that reaches into my heart, is terminology, definitions. I think I'm hearing something, people snoring out there. Huh. Oh, well, it's got to be just me. Nah, y'all love terminology, right? Okay. So what is a contributor? Okay, so these are actually very important so we understand who, what, and where. So the terminology I use that we all share and that we can make sure that what I'm saying actually makes sense. But a contributor is actually the backbone of the community. These are the people that are the stewards that go in and contribute the code that people use in a project. And the thing I want to communicate is it's just not code that they contribute. Contributors contribute documentation. They're the people that can also go in and add, update, fix problems in our documentation. They may also go in and fix and enhance the build scripts themselves, right? Whether it's the build.gradle or the POM or the POM files, right? They can actually go in and put in the fixes for these. It also means people that go in and answer questions on Stack Overflow, right? These are the people that can go in and actually add value back by just looking through and saying, I know the answer to that. I can actually answer that question. It's also those people that ask good questions on Stack Overflow. So if you go in and you have a question and you search and you can't find it, my gosh, ask the question. Because if you do, that again, that contributes back to the committee or to the community. And so there's all these various ways in which we can be a part of the open source community that is not just going in and writing code, right? The other thing is that you can do, let me go back to the Stack Overflow. One of the things that you have to understand, some people say, well, I don't know, Stack, answering questions, but one of the things that we do when we are looking at, like you may be saying, Glenn, I want to contribute to open source, but I actually want to work for open source company, right? Whether it's Red Hat, Spring, Google, pick your open source contributor who manages and helps create those or works on those projects. They look not only at did you commit code, but they're like, how active are you in the community? And part of that is, have you given talks? Do you answer questions on Stack Overflow? One of the people that we hired, that's one of the people that run one of the projects at Spring, he could contribute code to it. And when we were looking to hire someone for this job, this person, it wasn't just that this person had contributed code, but this person would answer the questions on Stack Overflow. But not only did he just answer the question, the technical question, his knowledge of the domain was so rich. He could explain why that answer was correct, or maybe even enhance that question such that it would give more value to the person who asked it. So when it came time to hire for that position, we found that that was almost as important as the code contributions and the talks that that person gave. So keep in mind, there are so many places in which you could contribute back to open source. It's just not submitting that code. And I know I've mentioned this before. It's also going up and giving talks at places like at meetups, like what I'm doing right now. It's going in and giving a lightning talk at a meetup. It could be going and submitting a talk to DevNexus or to another project, right? Or sorry, another conference. All these ways contribute back to the community, and it is much appreciated when you do. Okay. So for labels, now in this case, one of the things that you'll see is, especially when you go to contribute to open source projects, you might be saying, I'm interested in Spring Boot, Spring Cloud Task, Quarkus, Micronaut, take your pick, right? I kind of want to get involved in it. And so you're like, how do I get started? Do I just grab an issue? Man, these things are complex. Well, sometimes look at the labels that are provided and search for these labels. In many cases, projects are wanting to open up and diversify the people that are contributing to those projects. And the way that they do that to make it more inclusive is they will actually go in and say, hey, we do need this particular issue resolved. But what we're going to do is we're going to put extra detail into that given issue. And they're going to tag it first timers only. And what it means is this is an opportunity for you, the person who has never contributed before, to be able to go in, look at that issue, and submit code, or we're going to talk in a little bit, submit a PR back that says, I have fixed this problem based on what you've said. And what will happen is that we that are like the project owners or the committers, will walk you through that process, right? After you contribute it, we're going to maybe spend a little bit more time with you or time with that issue to help you walk through it so that code can actually make it into the trunk or master or the main, whatever you choose to call the trunk of the project. Also look out for things that is called ideal for contribution. What it means is it's those times where we're saying, you may not be the first timer, but you want something a little bit meatier, but maybe not as complex as some of these other issues. This is also something that you can look forward to. Now, true story, happened within the last 24 hours. So later in this conversation, I'm going to take what we are talking about, I'm going to put it in action. I'm actually going to create some first-timer only tags in a project called Spring Cloud Task. And these will be very easy. They'll allow you to kind of jump in and get involved and have your first chance at committing to open source, right? So yesterday, I created one, and I popped it out there, and it basically said, in the README for one of our samples in Spring Cloud Task, I accidentally put Java 7 instead of Java 8. We'll talk a little bit more. I didn't quite word that properly. And I said, I'll save this for tomorrow, right? Meaning today, for people to, me to grab, show people what to do, what to look for, and whatnot. I did that, and within 15 minutes, somebody had submitted a PR to fix it. So people are actually looking for these. People are wanting to get involved. I'm not trying to discourage you, but I am saying keep an eye out for it. And when you have those spare cycles, look for them, grab it, work on them, and get that contribution in, okay? So look for the labels. Yep, that was just showing you how long it was between the two. Well, like I said, it was 15 to 20 minutes, and I merged it last night. I said, well, I didn't say not to, so I merged it in and said, thank you so much. All right, so continuing on. Issues and questions. What is the difference between an issue and a question, right? An issue is, again, I know I keep using the same words over and over again. It's a feature or that somebody wants added, or it's a bug that needs to be fixed. It can affect code. It can affect the build. It can affect the docs. These are things that it could even be a video that's like, oh my gosh, that video is incorrect. Let me let them know that a given section of the video is incorrect, right? All good things that we want to know about. And with that being said, that is an issue, right? Now, a question is, I'm trying to do this. It looks like the project should be able to do that, but I'm not, I don't understand. Why is it doing it this way? I can't, and it might be that it is legitimately, I'm not sure why it's doing what it's doing, or I'm not sure how I'm supposed to do it. That is a question. Why do I make this distinction? Because if you ask a question where we're expecting to get an issue, right? Whether like I may ask a question in or may ask a question in the issues, GitHub issue. We may gently, and again, we love it when you ask questions. We love it when you give us issues. Well, I know it doesn't sound like it's true, but it is. We love it when you give it to us. That means we're getting feedback that's valuable. But we will turn around and ask you, we're going to close this issue, but please open up in Stack Overflow, right? Now, conversely, if you ask a question in Stack Overflow and it's a legitimate question, we're looking through it and we're like, that's not an issue. That's a bug. We're going to ask you to open that issue, or we may open that issue directly into the project, but we want to give you credit for finding it. So, we may ask you, hey, can you open up an issue in our project on GitHub Issues or a Jira ticket, right? Take advantage of that, and that's the reason I want to make sure you understood the difference between the two. So the next bit of terminology is the pull request. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more about I forked the project. I pulled that project into I cloned it onto my local machine. I saw an issue out there that I liked. I grabbed it and I'm now working on it. And now I need to, and I pushed it back up to my fork. How do I signal to the master project that this branch will solve this problem? That's called a pull request. And basically we'll show you in a little bit, but it's when you are in Git or GitHub, once you push that branch up, you can say, I want to submit a pull request to tell the world that, hey, I've got a solution for this problem. Or at least to tell the project owners that they have a solution to this problem, at which time we're alerted and we can take a look at the solution that you're providing. The CLA. The CLA is, of course, a contributor license agreement. And with that being said, it basically defines the terms in which the intellectual property of what you are giving us, how we're going to view it as the project, right? And most of, like in our case, it's the Apache license. But sometimes you have things like GNU, or they may have a specialized license for when you submit projects to, or submit a PR to a given project. Most projects in GitHub, basically when you create that PR and it's your first time submitting to that project, they're going to, it will actually show you a contributor license agreement to sign. I'm going to say this and you're going to roll your eyes, and I apologize because I'm even rolling my eyes as I say it. Please read it, right? Make sure you understand what you're agreeing to. I know it's icky, but you need to. There's a talk. If you can, screenshot this right now. It's called Breaking into Open Source. It was delivered by, oh gosh, Michael Manella and not Josh, Bob Pollan. Bob Pollan, where they actually go in and they discuss some of the various license agreements that they found out there, right? So make sure you understand what's involved. Secondarily, let's say it's an Apache license. You're like, okay, yeah, it's Apache. We're good. All right, I understand that. The other thing you need to do is also be sure to ask your employer, right? When you sign on with a company, sometimes they're like, we don't want you to contribute to open source projects unless we give you the green light. Okay, so make sure you check with your boss first. All right, I don't want y'all to get in trouble to submit commit to an open source project without first checking with your employer, because I don't want you to get in trouble, right? Contributor code of conduct. This is something that I'm actually really proud of. It's most projects out there are including one with it, basically establishes expectations of the behavior for the project's participants. What we're trying to do with the code of conduct is to adopt and enforce that code of conduct, right? To create a positive social atmosphere in the community. You can even actually go, when you go to DevNexus, you have to understand you're also assigning a code of conduct is there as well. So it allows us to say we want to create that positive social atmosphere so people feel safe and feel comfortable contributing code, comments, questions, documentation, the whole 9 yards. So this is actually very important. And again, I highly recommend if you see a project and that you're interested in, check out their code of conduct. Take a chance and read, or not take a chance, but take the time to read it. The coding conventions. Yes. Spaces or tabs. Talks amongst yourselves, and amongst that the most hated discussion to debate, right? It's a little bit more than that. Coding conventions basically allows us as people who contribute to projects to make sure that we stay within the frame of rules in which a project has expectations. It's not just the style of the code that which you're writing. It could also include the tools that we allow on there on that given project. It could be also including the testing conventions, right? It could be the testing tools, the dependencies, these things of that nature, that there's an expectation that you use these certain things. In many projects or on many projects, they use check styles. So when you do your build, it will actually catch a bunch of those for you, which is actually pretty cool, right? So in this case, when you submit a PR, and the ones I'm going to have for later today, or actually, we'll talk about how we're going to do that. But in this case, some of the things that you may get tagged on is coding conventions. Don't worry, that is, it's not us, the committers being in there being too strict. We're just wanting your code to be submitted into the project, and when somebody reads the code, they can't tell it was Jack or Jane or Margaret's code. They can just say, hey, this is the code. And it looks good because it follows the same conventions. It uses the same tools, things of that nature. So it's actually a pretty cool thing to have, even though it sounds old school. That's good. The committer. The committer's job is the person that will actually look at the code, the PRs that come in. It is a person that is different, typically. It's supposed to be different than the person who wrote the code. The job of the committer is to review the code, make sure the following things, that the code meets the coding standards as we've already talked about. It also verifies the code fixes the problem, right? That provides the functionality that the issue is specified. Verify that it actually works. Make sure it has tests. Verifies that the build, that it builds after you submit the PR, that it builds. Then the other part is that once they've gone to agreement, they say, yes, this is awesome. And they've sent you the magic letters, LGTM, looks good to me. Thank you for the contribution. And they send you the virtual hug across the screen, because you probably don't want me to hug you. But they send you the virtual hug because they're so appreciative. I really love it when y'all contribute code. It makes me so happy. You want to make me happy? Submit code. It's awesome. I even tell my wife, I'm like, somebody submitted code. And she's like, you need to get a life, husband. You need to get a life. Truth. But but another case is the other thing that the committer does, and this is the reason why sometimes it looks like we're like, man, they're being really strict. Once you submit the code and we merge it, you submit the code and we merge it, it's the project owners that effectively own that code, right? And so in that case, they want to make sure that what that code is there will not negatively impact the other users out there of that project. They want to make sure it meets the criteria and does solve the problems in the way and in the format and even in the methodology of how the project works. So again, they may look cranky. They're not. They're actually really happy people. Most are really happy. Okay, the day in a life contributor. Well, back in the day, we used to go to the office and we'd code, and sometimes we'd go and say, hey, boss, I'm going to work on this open source project because it was going to provide this much value for the community, you know, it fixes a problem that we need fixed. Or we would go home to our palatial little cabin in Provence, France, and drive our Ferrari around, and then come back home in the evening and start contributing back to open source code. What, y'all don't have a small little building in Provence with a Ferrari? You're like me living in North Atlanta with a 20-year-old truck. Okay. Well, maybe you don't have the 20-year-old truck. Hopefully your truck vehicle is a little bit younger than mine. So we're about to hit the magic demo time. And in this case, before we hit the demo, we're going to go talk about the flow of a open source project. And you see these two folks. That's Bob Pollen on the left. That's Freddie Guime on the right. I'm going to be playing two roles tonight, and I'm stealing from them. In this case, we see Bob is wearing the little propeller beanie. He is the contributor, and the old man on the right is going to be the committer. In order to make it unique, I will be playing the role of contributor, as if I'm wearing the bowler hat, I am going to be the contributor. It's also very interesting to try to wear these hats over earphones. So if it falls down like that, the laugh is on me. The committer will be wearing the deerstalker hat. So in short, what we're going to be talking about is, of course, Sherlock Holmes and Watson. Okay, I know, I'm old. I like them. So let me pause for just a second before I get any further. I'm going to be popping onto the chat. Is there any questions out there that people want to ask? Or you can just unmute and ask if you can. If there's no questions, I will continue. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yoo-hoo. Okay, well, I'll continue. All right, so in this case, what are the steps? This is the first timer. What you're going to be doing is you're going to fork the project. So forking the project basically means you're going to get a copy of that project into your own GitHub account, and it's going to create your own repository there for it. This allows you to freely experiment and play with that project. And it's based. What we're going to do is I'm not going to be going into this part too much tonight. I guess I should have to come to reflection, but screenshot this right here. The instructions on how to start contributing there was a doc here written by Gary Russell, Gunnar Hillert, I've got who else, and they discuss in great detail how to fork a project, how to pull it and clone it to your local machine, and to do those first two important steps, right? So take a look at this document, and also there's videos out there that you could take a look at that show you how to do that for the first time. I didn't, like I said, I wish I kind of wouldn't did it this time, but I was also trying to keep time compressed, and I am not doing too well on that, so I got to speed it up even faster. Whoa. Once you've done that and you've signed the CLA, once you've done your first PR, you only have to do that the first time, right? The next thing you're going to be doing is what's going to happen and what I do every day, or even I'll do every day when you're working in code, right? You're going to first find the issue that you want to work on, and then you're going to create a topic branch, right? And now this is on your local machine, and once you check out that topic branch, got to put on my contributor hat, bink. I'm going to go ahead and create that topic branch, and then I'm going to do my magic. I'm going to fix the problem. I'm going to add the feature. I'm going to update the documentation, whatever it takes to do that, to resolve that issue. Once I do that, I'm going to commit, and I'm going to provide a commit message. Another opportunity to do a screenshot. Commit messages are very, very important for the committers to understand exactly what you fixed. Please include, if there's a GitHub ID or a Jira ticket number, please include that so we know that this bug is being fixed by, or this PR is fixing this bug or adding this feature. And Chris Deans did a great job adding the information required here to make a really good commit message. Going back, then what you're going to do is once you've committed that code on your local machine, you're going to push it to GitHub. And then once you push that to GitHub, there's going to be a button up there when you go to your fork, and it says, do you wish to submit a PR for this branch? And you'll say yes. And then you'll magically see your commit message will be in the text box along with the title. And with that, you will click that button. At which point I will get the email as the committer. And as a committer, I'm going to look at your code. When I look at your code, I'm going to, again, check all those things we talked about before. If I find that there might be some issues with it, I'm going to add comments to your code, right, to your PR. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to request those changes. And then once I request those changes, you go back and you repeat the step. You'll update the code or respond to my question. See, there went the hat. And once you do that, you're going to recommit. And then once you recommit your code, you're going to push to GitHub again. You don't have to submit the PR. It automatically applies it to the original PR. And at which time, the committer will re-review the code and then merge it in. So we are now going to enter a demo that will take a very long time and at a desk that's far, far away from you. Truthfully, it shouldn't take that long. We're not going to go to questions quite yet, but we're going to hit demo mode. So I am going to try it, and let's see how long I can keep this hat on my head as I become a contributor. All right. So we're going to use today the target of our love will be here for the Spring Cloud Task project. And one of the things that I noticed in the Spring Cloud Task project, and we go to the samples, we'll see that I have all these sample projects out there. They're amazing, they're wonderful, they're beautiful. They explain exactly what Spring Cloud Task does and shows you how to do it and use it. Amazing. Do you realize that you're like, my gosh, y'all are really still using 7? And I'm like, well, no, we're still using 8. And you're like, why 8? Java Spring has said that we will stay with you folks not only through the current releases of Java, but we'll also support those folks that all go back to Java 8. So clearly we can see that this topic or this readme.doc is incorrect. And so it is my duty as a contributor and a user of the project to want to go in and fix this issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here. I will create that new issue. And I'm going to say the task events model, or sorry, sample, is state should, readme should set minimum Java version to 8. Okay, probably not the best text, but it gets the job done. I'll write something a little bit more nicer later. And I'm going to submit the issue. So I know that I can handle that. I create the issue, so I think I could go ahead and fix it. So I see, my gosh, it gave me a real number here, 708. So let me go to Spring Cloud Task, and I'm going to do this, get checkout. I'm going to give it a prefix task, and I think it was 708. Let's make sure. Yep, better part of valor to always check. And when I do that, I'm going to do a get checkout -b. So I'm going to create a new branch, right? My feature branch, yay! And then I'm going to pull up my IntelliJ. And from my IntelliJ, I am going to go to the Spring Cloud Task samples. I'm going to find task events. I'm going to find that naughty readme, and I am going to fix it. Java 8 The celebrations. In this case, I would normally write my tests, but since this is a simple doc change, I don't think we can have to worry about that. So that's one reason I chose this one. So we're going to do a get status, and we see that I only touched one file. We're going to do then get a log dash, we're going to do a commit. And we're going to say updated README to state Java version minimum is Java 8. I think I overwent a little bit, but that's okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, in this case, I'm going to say resolves issue number 708. So this way I can say I updated the README. Let me clean that up. Oop. Just that, okay, something smaller there, to resolve that issue. And so now the committer, who when they get involved, they'll know which issue it's going to fix. They can see what's going to happen. And I'm going to now go get push origin task dash 708. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my GitHub. And there we go. I'll find it sooner or later. We've got too much stuff here. There we go. There we are. And so now if I go in and I do a magic refresh, there we go. Okay. To my repo. Did I push it up? Let's check my repository. Should have task 7.0. Ah, there it is. It was just delayed. And it'll say compare and pull request. Usually it does it right out the gate, but sometimes you have to go in and say, yeah, I want to take a look at, sometimes it takes a while, but in this case, it finally showed up. So now we can see the code that I fixed, or sorry, the pull request, and say, hey, I want to go ahead and submit a pull request for this. And it will show me the code I changed. In this case, it show you all the files. In this case, it was Java 7 to 8. I'll create that pull request. Now, if I go back to Spring Cloud Task, I could see that that pull request has now been created. We can actually see it among the list. And now I can go and celebrate in great joy and say, I just created my first PR. Now, the committer is now involved. They have been notified that the fact that, hey, a new PR is now available. So I am now going to take a look. And I say, all right, let me take a look at this change. All right. Okay, that makes sense. The issue you created makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and I think it looks good to me. We'll go to command line, and I'm going to now, as a committer, go in and verify your work. Okay. And the way that I do that's a magical copy paste. I love this part. Feel all the power. Make sure as a committer that it is what I expect. Yep. I see a updated README to set the Java version minimum as Java 8. Okay. It is a change that I expect. So now I'm going to merge it. Normally, again, I would build, test, review, but very small change here, right? Again, make sure I didn't break anything. And we see that it looks good. Yep. Sorry, making sure I didn't mess anything up. Yep. Okay. Now, as the committer, I can see that that has been merged. I can then say, looks good to me. Thank you for your contribution. Oh, where'd my mouse go? Yeah, there's my mouse. Comment. And now we can actually go in and see that that change that I just put in is now there. Yay. So now I have just committed my first piece of code. I can now take off my committer hat. And as a contributor, I can celebrate greatly. Yay! So with that being said, let me go back to our wonderful presentation. And I will stop share. And people, if you have questions, feel free to ask. Hello. Wave at me, somebody, just general. David Rospond, wave at me. Yay, look at there, they're alive. Hey, Timmy, how are you? Vincent, wave, woohoo, Derek, woo, look at everybody, wave, wave, yay. Is there any questions?
Yes.
Go for it, my friend.
So in the case where you are contributing code, I assume that you should have associated unit tests, maybe other kinds of tests. Is there
Absolutely.
kind of like is this linked to any kind of CD like pipeline that does testing? I know like some open source have that.
Now you're just picking a fight, right?
No, I'm just asking.
Hold on, let me share a screen for you. Actually, that is a great question. Most projects out here, I'm going to click share again so you'll see my wonderful. What you'll do now is see build dot, and well, we can see that what I just built, pushed, is being built right now.
Ah.
Okay. So most projects that are out there will already have this built into place where anytime and you do a push, I as a committer, right? When I do a push, I'm going to go ahead and see that build occur. The one thing that you also notice on many projects, they're using GitHub Actions, right? Let me go back to task. And let's go take a look at that pull request. It's closed now, and that's okay. And what you'll see if we scroll down here is you'll see that I did a build on it. So right now, every time you do a check-in to like any Spring project, we're going to do a build of that PR before we actually go and actually merge it in. So we can see, and it also gives you a chance. You said, hey, it built on my machine, but it didn't build in, it didn't build out there. Why? Maybe you have some dependencies there that are in your local repo that is not available on Maven Central anymore, or there was a hiccup, right? Or you're using something that you have that's not out in the general public. And so this local build, GitHub Action helps us check for that and helps you check for that, right? So after you submit your PR, make sure you go back in and check your PR and make sure that what you'll see again, if they've set it up, which most projects have, you can see that your stuff actually built. And then we have the follow-up build where we go in and we have integration tests that run after the latest JVM. We always make sure we build on Java 8 and Spring, and that we also build on the latest JVM, in this case 14. And then we also run a Sonar build to make sure we didn't break any of those rules. That's a great question, Vinny.
Cool. That's very cool. I learned something.
GitHub Actions is your friend. Just a little bit of cussing to start, but then it becomes your friend.
So I'll share some news that we've been working on as a AJUG board. Is that we're talking to an Eclipse Foundation project, MicroProfile, which some of you may know and may use already. MicroProfile is going into the incubation phase as an open source project, and they need a working group in order of at least 5 member orgs in order to be able to do that. And we're talking to the MicroProfile folks about the JUG is about being one of those 5 initial working group members that will help take MicroProfile into the incubation phase within the Eclipse Foundation, and also help them release MicroProfile 4.0. So this is all going on behind the scenes. It may not even happen till the end of the year, but when that does happen, and if all goes to plan, then the Atlanta Java User Group will be a member of an open source project working group. And there's lots of opportunities that come along with that for folks in our community to contribute. Again, as Glenn said, contributing to open source is not just about contributing code. There's many, many ways to contribute to open source projects. There's documentation, there's creative, there's content. There's so many things that people can do other than fix bugs or opening issues is opening issues, whether it's code or anything else. So that's exciting news. Just stay tuned for that. As things firm up, we'll make announcements to the community.
Cool. One person asked, I won't reveal their name, but another good question that was asked privately to me, so thank you, he said, what open source projects can somebody new join? Now, I'm going to give you a Spring Quest answer to it, but folks, what Vincent just said is perfect. I mean, MicroProfile's looking, right? So jump in there with both feet when you start seeing those issues. And Vincent, I don't know if they have it, but if they've got, brand new, the new first-timer onlys, add those labels. For Spring, it's you can look at any project and they'll have it out there. Just the ones I mentioned today is Spring Boot, Spring Batch, Spring Cloud Task, Spring Cloud Data Flow. Spring, almost anything in the Spring Cloud has that opportunity. So look out for those tags, okay? Are other folks, I'm going to open it up, is any other people who are on open source projects right now looking for those first-time contributors?
Hey, Glenn.
Yay.
You're back.
Woohoo!
Really quick question for you along the lines of, you mentioned something earlier that I was curious about, and that was, some managers or companies may not want you to contribute to open source projects. And this may be a silly question, but what's a reason a company wouldn't want you to do that?
Sometimes it's proprietary information that they don't want released. They want to make sure that you understand that anything that you create in their company for them is actually owned by them. And so they may be concerned that you will release proprietary information in the code that you provide.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'll add to that. There's an element of this. That whole thing is called IP flow. And if an individual who's working for any, pick a company, any company, Cox Automotive in Atlanta, I don't know, wants to contribute to open source projects, depending on the rules of that project. I know with the Eclipse Foundation, we know this because we've been going through it. They would need to have their organization sign a release. Basically, that anything that they create for the project, the IP is owned by the project and not by their organization. Now, not every open source project is like that. For example, all of our AJUG site, our DevNexus site, a whole bunch of other things that we do on a real, I guess macro level, you don't need that kind of release to work on stuff. And it's the same for many, many, many other projects out there in the world. Glenn, you can probably talk to some of the Pivotal or the Tanzu stuff, whatever, the Spring stuff. But I do know that for some projects that are in foundations like Eclipse or Apache, that document does need a sign off by someone in the organization that's prepared to do that. And it's a very, very simple thing. It's not legally binding. Well, I guess it is legally binding, but it basically just says that, John Smith, anything that he contributes to this code base is owned by the code base and not by Cox Automotive.
Makes sense. Yeah, they're just protecting it. Makes sense. Okay.
So I think that if you're a student, you have to be very aware of your university policy as well, especially if you're paid.
Most excellent. And it could also be that they may want their attorneys to look at the license that you have to make sure that the license doesn't contradict or conflict with what they have. Very good point, Melanie. Or do we have any other questions before I issue a challenge? Okay, well, so here's the challenge. So I'm going to share for just another minute. Thank y'all for your patience. As you can ask Vincent, Vinny, woo, latest JVM had a hiccup. Well, that sucks. Find out what happened there. We learn, but we can see that one actually succeeded. So we'll go back over here. I know what it is. That's nothing. All right, so let's go back over here to, actually I was in the right spot. There we go. It's sorry, cycling back up. So we're going to go to GitHub and we're going to go back to task. Okay, we're going to go to pull requests. So what's going to happen? So remember this. So you're going to see Spring Cloud Task. So go to GitHub, look up just Spring Cloud Task space GitHub, and you'll find this project. So what you're going to see is you're going to see that right now we have 29 issues. You're going to probably see 34 issues tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Okay. And you're going to see they're going to be marked first timers only. So what I'm going to do, actually, no. I said Thursday. I promised Thursday. So Thursday at 6 Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to create 6 issues for first timers only. And so if you are interested in contributing and getting your feet wet, please jump in on the Spring Cloud Task Project, go look at it, and then take a look at one of the issues. And feel free to, and it's going to be the same thing I showed you this evening, right? It's just going in and setting that Java version from 7 to 8. And get your feet wet. And what I'm going to do, the rules are, since like we showed you, like yesterday, it was within 20 minutes that somebody was responding. The first person that submits a PR, I will consider that person the winner, and I'll assist them walking them through the process, okay? And that was because in the issue that I opened up yesterday, I had 2 people submit PRs, one at 15 and the other one at like 20 minutes later. So, don't worry. I'm going to try to keep creating these issues in this project, in the data flow project. Keep an eye on the boot project. And like I said, any of the Spring Cloud projects, you're going to see those pop in. Take a look, take advantage of those, and get your feet wet. Okay. With that, Vincent, I yield it back to you.
All righty. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks for the talk. That was awesome. So I guess, like I said, anybody want to stay chat? We're here chatting, but you got to turn on your video and you got to have some kind of interesting background. like this did. And I do edit this part out of the recording.
Okay, so let me change it to something a little more interesting on mine. I had one earlier today. Let's see, Zoom.
I'm going to put my favorite on.
There it is. There we go.
There. See, Zoom does let you upload an MP4.
Yeah, mine is. All mine does is just circle the responses.
Yeah, I still can't get this lighting right. I'll have to figure this out real soon. Is anyone else having challenging with kind of like home desk setup?
Yes.
Like cams and
Yes.
whatever, mics and lights and backlit
Yes.
by the window. My bedroom window is right behind me, so basically during the day, if I'm on this type of call, I have to close the blinds or I have to have these 1,000-watt lights on me because otherwise you can't see me.
Right. I mean, I need the ring light right now. I'm in shadow. I had to move adjust the light over so you could see me at all. But yeah, and I need a real desk, like maybe a crank desk that could stand up, because as this goes longer and longer, I'm like, I really need a real desk now. The coffee table is just not going to do.
I actually got one of the desktop stands that actually stands up or will raise up, so I can do standing coding. About
Is that the
I
Versa
do it
desk?
in, huh?
Is that the Versa desk thing?
It's just actually it's just a tabletop unit. I cannot remember the name of what it was. I'll get it to you.
Okay.
But it's standing on my old desk, and so basically automates and raises up.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
it was about
like that.
$200, but it was cheaper than a full desk, and it just fit where I needed. It fitted on my existing desk, so I was like, perfect, and it works great.
That's awesome. So for the people that want to join the microprofile project and contribute, they can just go to the repo and look for the issues.
Yeah,
and
just GitHub, microprofile. And again, this is independent. You don't have to. AJUG stepped in as an entity and the board discussed this, and